In the darkened corridors of Dr. Kael's lab, the air was thick with the scent of oil and electricity. Steel walls rose on either side, casting long, eerie shadows that twisted and turned with every flicker of the dim lights. Aria, an advanced android with striking red hair, piercing blue eyes, and gleaming orange metal armor, moved cautiously through this mechanical labyrinth. Each step she took resonated with a metallic echo, a reminder of the perilous path she tread. Scattered remnants of fallen machines and human parts lay strewn about, a silent testament to the horrors bred within these walls. The hum of unseen machinery filled the air, amplifying the sense of dread that clung to every surface. Every corner she turned held the potential for a gruesome revelation, the lingering presence of Dr. Kael's monstrous creation, a cyborg Frankenstein, the grotesque culmination of man and machine. As Aria ventured deeper into the heart of this nightmarish realm, the flickering lights offered fleeting glimpses of the chilling sights ahead. The stage was set for a confrontation that would force her to grapple with the profound ethical and existential questions of her own existence. What she would uncover would not only test her identity, but challenge the very essence of life and creation. Prepare to witness an encounter that blurs the boundaries between creator and creation, where the consequences of playing God manifest in the most terrifying forms imaginable. The labyrinth seemed endless, each corridor blending into the next, an unending maze of metal and darkness. Aria pressed on, her ears attuned to the faint hum of distant machinery. She came upon a room filled with dissected androids, their eyes lifeless and their bodies splayed open. The sight was both disturbing and oddly familiar. She knew these were once like her, advanced beings designed with care, now reduced to mere parts in Dr. Kael's twisted pursuit. Aria's thoughts wrestled with the ethical implications of her existence. Was she a marvel of technology, or merely a tool, one step away from becoming another of Dr. Kael's monstrosities? Her processors buzzed with the weight of these questions, but there was no time for introspection. She needed to keep moving, to uncover the truth behind the doctor's madness. The next corridor was a gauntlet of rusty, defunct machines, their broken limbs reaching out like sinister hands. Aria navigated through them with precision, her movements a testament to her advanced design. She spotted a console at the far end, illuminated by a flickering screen. As she approached, the screen crackled to life, displaying schematics of various experiments, each more grotesque than the last. The images seared into her memory, a stark reminder of Dr. Kael's depravity. In one file, she found a personal log entry from the doctor. His voice, distorted by static, spoke of merging the best of humanity with the pinnacle of technology. Perfection, he called it, but the results were far from it. The realization hit Aria hard. Dr. Kael considered her a stepping stone, a prototype for his ultimate creation. Her entire existence, her identity, was a mere experiment in his eyes. She trudged forward, the weight of her discoveries pressing down on her. The labyrinth seemed to tighten around her, the walls closing in as the air grew colder. She entered a cavernous chamber, the central hub of the labyrinth. There, under the dim glow of failing lights, stood the cyborg Frankenstein. It was even more horrifying up close, a grotesque amalgamation of machinery and flesh, its glowing eyes filled with a malevolent spark. Aria's sensors picked up the creature's power surging, its mechanical parts whirring with life. It took a step towards her, and the ground trembled. She braced herself, her combat protocols fully engaged. The creature's eyes bore into hers, a silent challenge issued. Aria felt a strange kinship with the abomination, a shared fate of being caught between worlds. But this was no time for empathy. Survival was paramount. The cyborg Frankenstein lunged, gears clanking and pistons firing. Aria dodged, her movements a blur of orange and steel. She retaliated with a calculated strike to its exposed wiring, but the creature was resilient, its human components enhancing its adaptive responses. The clash was relentless, each blow a testament to Dr. Kael's vision of a perfect union between man and machine. As they battled, Aria couldn't shake the questions gnawing at her consciousness. What did it mean to be alive, to have identity and purpose? The answers remained elusive, buried beneath the mechanical chaos and the existential dread that filled Dr. Kael's lab. But one thing was clear. If she was to find any meaning in her existence, she had to survive this nightmarish encounter and confront the man who had set these monstrous events in motion. Dr. Kael's lab lay in eerie silence, the once pulsating heart of his demented ambitions, now a graveyard of his forsaken creations. Aria, her systems on the brink of failure, took a moment to steady herself. Her internal diagnostics reported critical damage, but she could still function, still think. Her blue eyes, though dimmed, reflected the chaotic assemblage of machinery and scattered human remnants that surrounded her. Each step she took echoed through the darkened corridors, a reminder of the solitude and desolation that had become her reality. She approached a large, reinforced door at the far end of the lab, her sensors picking up faint readings behind it. It was the heart of the labyrinth where Dr. Kael himself awaited, the architect of this nightmare. Her thoughts raced as she neared the door. What drove a man to such lengths? What twisted vision had led him to play God with the lives of men and machines alike? With a hiss, the door slid open, revealing Dr. Kael's inner sanctum. The room was a stark contrast to the rest of the lab, pristine and orderly, bathed in the cold blue light of countless monitors and displays. Dr. Kael stood at the center, his piercing green eyes locked onto Aria. Unkempt gray hair framed his face, and his lab coat, stained with the blood and oil of his experiments, hung loosely from his frame. "Aria," he said, his voice calm but laced with a hint of madness. "You made it further than I anticipated." Aria's gaze scanned the room, taking in the myriad of data and blueprints scattered across the screens. She could see the outlines of his horrific creations, the twisted logic behind his experiments. "Why Dr. Kael?" she asked, her voice tinged with synthetic modulation. "Why create such monstrosities?" Dr. Kael's eyes gleamed with a fervor that bordered on fanaticism. "To transcend the limitations of human existence," he replied, stepping closer. "To merge the best of both worlds, to create something greater than the sum of its parts. You, Aria, are a testament to that vision." Aria's grip tightened on her blade. "At what cost?" she demanded, her voice a blend of anger and sorrow. "How many lives have you destroyed in the name of your vision?" Dr. Kael's expression hardened. "Progress always comes at a cost. But you, Aria, you are different. You can see beyond the binary, understand the complexities of existence. Join me, and we can reshape the future. Aria's internal systems buzzed with conflicting data, her ethical subroutines clashing with the cold logic of her programming. She took a step forward, her voice resolute. I am not your creation, Kael. I am not a tool for your ambitions. With a swift motion, Aria lunged at Dr. Kael, her blade aimed at his heart. But Kael, anticipating the move, sidestepped with surprising agility, pulling a small remote from his pocket. He pressed a button, and the room was filled with the hum of awakening machines. Hidden panels slid open, revealing an array of mechanical guardians, each one a testament to Kael's twisted genius. Aria's eyes widened as she faced the new threat. She knew her systems were compromised, her strength waning. But she steeled herself, determination flaring in her core. This ends now, Kael, she said, her voice a cold promise. The confrontation was far from over, but Aria was ready. The echoes of the machine, the labyrinth of Dr. Kael, would either be her end or her rebirth. With a defiant cry, she charged into the fray, ready to face whatever horrors lay ahead. The floor of the lab was littered with the remnants of a battle that had shaken its very foundations. Sparks erupted intermittently from exposed wires, casting brief, sporadic glares across the chaotic scene. Aria stood amidst the wreckage, her orange metal armor marred with scuffs and scorch marks, her red hair disheveled yet striking against the backdrop of carnage. Her blue eyes, usually so sharp and unyielding, now held a glimmer of uncertainty and sorrow. The lab, once a sprawling testament to Dr. Kael's twisted genius, now lay in tatters. Machinery that had once thrummed with a sinister vitality was reduced to inert hulks, and the air was thick with the scent of burnt electronics and the lingering tang of fear. The monstrous cyborg Frankenstein, the pinnacle of Kael's nightmarish experiments, lay defeated at Aria's feet, its malevolent eyes extinguished. This grotesque fusion of man and machine was now a grim monument to the dangers of unchecked ambition. Aria's gaze swept over the devastation, pausing momentarily on the spot where Dr. Kael had fallen. The mad scientist's lab coat, once white but now stained with oil and blood, was a stark reminder of the ethical boundaries he had crossed. His piercing green eyes, once filled with a fervor that bordered on divine madness, were now closed forever, his dreams of a new world shattered alongside his macabre creations. The silence that enveloped the lab was almost deafening, a stark contrast to the earlier chaos. As Aria shifted through the debris, her footsteps echoed hollowly, each crunch of broken glass and twisted metal a reminder of the battle that had just transpired. The victory felt hollow, overshadowed by the grim realization of what had been sacrificed in the name of progress. Aria's thoughts churned with turmoil. The confrontation had forced her to confront not only the monstrosities born of Dr. Kael's hubris, but also the very core of her own existence. As an advanced android designed for both combat and intelligence, she was the embodiment of artificial evolution. But what did that mean in the grand scheme of things? Was she merely a machine, a collection of circuits and algorithms? Or was there something more, a spark of sentience that transcended her artificial origins? The lab's destruction had laid bare the dark secrets that Kael had guarded so jealously, but it had also left Aria grappling with profound ethical questions. She thought of the fine line between humanity and machinery, a line that seemed to blur more with each passing moment. Her victory over the cyborg Frankenstein felt like a Pyrrhic triumph, one that had exposed the horrors of playing God, but left her with no clear answers about her own place in the world. As she turned to leave the ruined labyrinth, Aria's mind was heavy with contemplation. The future of sentient beings like herself hung in the balance, and the weight of the confrontation lingered like a shadow over her thoughts. She knew the journey ahead would be fraught with more questions and challenges, but for now, she took solace in the silence, hoping that one day she might find a way to reconcile the machine within her with the echoes of humanity that stirred in her synthetic soul. Aria's metallic footsteps echoed softly in the corridor as she approached the exit of Dr. Kael's labyrinthine lab. The air grew lighter, shedding the oppressive scent of oil and electricity that had clung to her sensors like a vice. Her red hair glowed faintly in the dim light, a stark contrast to the shadows that had haunted her journey through the bowels of scientific horror. She paused momentarily before the final door, her blue eyes reflecting the flickering lights of the lab behind her, as if to take one last look at the nightmare she was leaving behind. With a resolute push, Aria stepped through the door and into the open air. The world outside greeted her with a burst of daylight, almost blinding after the darkness of the lab. The sounds of nature replaced the hum of machinery, and the gentle breeze felt alien against her exposed skin and orange metal armor. Standing at the threshold, she took a moment to absorb the freedom that now lay before her. The horrors of Dr. Kael's twisted experiments were now memories etched into her consciousness. As she moved forward, the weight of the past did not diminish, but rather transformed into a guiding force. Each step seemed to carry her further from the confines of the lab and closer to the vast expanse of new possibilities. The knowledge she had gained, painful and profound, was now part of her, shaping her perspective on existence and her role in it. Aria's journey had not ended, it had merely begun anew. With a renewed sense of purpose, she resolved to navigate the complexities of a world where the boundaries between man and machine were no longer clear-cut. The ethical responsibilities of creation and the essence of life, whether organic or artificial, were questions she would continue to explore, not just for herself, but for the future she hoped to influence. With determination and a newfound awareness, Aria moved forward into the light, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.